Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christopher Galfano, and my Capstone project is titled Tracing Gesture, and it's focusing on how using gesture with speech facilitates learning. So, a little background on gesture. It's a form of nonverbal communication, and the purpose is to use bodily movements to convey or emphasize the meaning of certain messages, and it reiterates information exposed in speech, clarifies ambiguities in conversation, and adds information not found anywhere in the words it accompanies. And the methods of gesture vary depending on things such as personality traits, values, and cultures. So my hypothesis is that including gesture with speech facilitates learning. This stems from theories that say gesture points out objects in the immediate context and helps relate the words they see to the world around them. And this relates to a classroom setting. When a child gestures to a teacher, it shows what they know and lets the teacher, it shows them what they know and how they view a problem. So for example, if a teacher is giving instructions in a class and a child nods, it shows the teacher that they're learning what they're saying, and when they're shrugging, it shows that they're not. I looked up various articles, and I found a lot that focused on gesture-speech mismatches. It's basically when a speaker's gestures show different information of what's said in the speech, and this juxtaposition of the visual and verbal aspects magnifies how out of place the conversation is, and it motivates people to seek out more information, which ultimately facilitates learning subconsciously. I also did a lot of research. I've done a lot of research on the deaf and hard of hearing community and their native language, which is American Sign Language, also known as ASL. Due to speech limitations, though, they gesture as much as they can, but it's related to their speech. So I looked up a study at the University of Chicago that dealt with deaf children's proficiency of math equivalence tests. They had a sample size of 40 deaf and hard of hearing students between the ages of 4 and 12. An example of the task for the math equivalence test was like 6 plus 5 plus 8 equals blank plus 8. And some of their strategies included adding all of these up, 6 plus 5 plus 8, putting the number, or adding all the numbers completely and then putting the number, or simply dragging over the 5 just because they saw that this had plus 8 and this had plus 8, so they figured that, and then there was a great amount that actually figured out that the answer would be 6 plus 5 is 11. And so they coded a mixture of gesture and sign, and they narrowed it down to iconic versus deictic signs. So deictic includes elements such as pointing, scratching head, or showing a problem like this with their palm. And iconic are like lexical signs. They're found in the dictionary, and they use it in their explanation. For example, they would sign 6 add 5 equals 11. And I related this to the art of sign language interpretation because it relates to the theory of gesture facilitating learning. According to Golden Meadow and Patton in 2012, if an interpreter is in a room with a teacher and a deaf child, if the interpreter doesn't have access to the teacher's gestures, the information fully conveyed will be available to the deaf student. So they act as a liaison to help deaf children learn. So gesture can convey rich semantic information, either redundant with speech or supplementary. Studies show that gesture may be among the cues that show what idea will happen next or fix the order of sequences in regards to storytelling. I found that when speech is not accompanied by gesture, certain elements may be omitted from the story. I found an article that talked about the slide theory. So, for example, if a child is asked to describe the action of sliding down a slide, they'll often focus on the central activity, which is sliding, rather than the initial activity, which is climbing. And Kita 2000 said that there are 2 functions that correlate with gesture, and that's other-oriented and self-oriented. Other-oriented is defined as functions that convey information to the listener and make communication smoother. So, for example, in a group setting when speakers are gesturing, gesturing that would help with turn-taking in the conversation. So instead of saying like, you may talk now, they just gesture like that. That's an example of other-oriented. And self-oriented is defined as it facilitates language production, verbalization of thought, and reduces cognitive load. And examples I found was that studies show that speakers reduce gesture even when they couldn't see their listeners. So this suggests that gestures may be produced also for the speaker's benefit, even if the listener isn't paying attention. So gesture isn't restricted simply to hand motions. I found various articles that talk about mouth gestures, which includes using the jaw, lips, cheek, and tongue to imply some air movement or noises. It's different from mouthings, which are mouth movements to show if a word or part of a word is being pronounced. And the way deaf children articulate the mouthing of words positively aids to their gesture. And I split the functions of mouth gestures into two categories, lexical and morphemic. An example of lexical is in American Sign Language, the two terms terrible and awesome are the same exact sign like this, but adding facial expression and gesture like completely changes. They have completely different meanings, but they're both signed as the same. So like for example, terrible would be like, and then awesome would be like. And the morphemic function is that gestures can influence the severity of the sign at hand. So for example, if somebody was signing about how they saw fireworks and like it was a small firework, they'd just like with that small air emission. But if they saw like a huge firework, they'd be like psh. So that's the difference between those two functions of mouth gesture. I also looked a lot on spatial ability, and it's research in many nonverbal communication studies. It's broken up into three parts: visualization, relations, and orientation. Visualization is defined as the ability to mentally transform stimuli in space. Relation is the ability to rapidly recognize the identity of a simple item under rotation. And orientation is the ability to imagine how stimuli will appear from another's perspective. And this relates to research I did last summer at the University of Chicago in the Susan Golden Meadow Lab in the psychology department. Susan Golden Meadow, she's an expert on the cognitive basis of gesture and sign language. And I worked on a project focusing on deaf children's proficiency of science conservation tasks. And just a brief background, according to the law of conservation, the measurable amount of one object does not change as the object evolves. And the study involved 8 different tasks with the children. I'll show you. They're all Piagetian, by the way. So for the first one, there were 2, these are all deaf and hard of hearing children, by the way. There were 2 glasses first presented in front of them with the same amount of water, and they were asked, is this the same or is this different? And then until they said that it was the same, they poured one glass into a taller cylinder-shaped glass, and then they asked, is this the same or the different? And if it was the same or different, and then they had to give their explanation on why they thought it, and I coded their gestures, how they like differentiated. If they said it was different, it was because this is like this now, the water is like this now. So that was one task. The second task was length and perpendicular. In aspect of the perpendicular, so there was 2 sticks and then that were parallel, changed to perpendicular, and then they were asked if they were the same length. And a lot of them ended up saying like because it changed, the object that was changed is longer. Next one, there were 2 balls of Play-Doh, and one was flattened, and then they were asked if it was the same amount.
That was funny.
Oh, okay, thank you. And the next one, 2 glasses of water, and then kind of similar to the one in the cylinder glass, but this time it was poured into a bowl, and then they said that this one had more now because it was wider. Again, a Play-Doh one, except this time it was rolled. And coins, there were 2 rows of coins. You can't really tell, but this top row of coins is spread out more evenly, and like if they got them right, they usually decipher this by counting how many in each, and then they're like, oh, it's the same amount. But a lot of them just figured since it was more spread out, it's more. And then another one, that it was changed to have a circular formation. And then the last one, it was similar to the perpendicular one, except the 2 sticks were just moved, and then that all confused a lot of them and made them think because the one that was moved, they differentiated the 2 lengths and they said it was longer. So I'm going to Gallaudet University in Washington D.C. in fall. And it's a university that specializes in deaf and hard of hearing education. It's 90% deaf and hard of hearing students. So I will be getting my master's in sign language interpretation. So when I go there, my main thing that I want to focus on is outdoor and gardening therapeutic mechanisms for deaf and hard of hearing children. Because as you can see in this picture, I volunteered with 3 deaf and hard of hearing children last year in Watsonville, and they all had hearing aids in class, but one of them had a cochlear implant, and it caused her to have severe headaches. And so and it ended up not working. So what I'm interested in is seeing how outdoor therapeutic mechanisms can help emotional and physical trauma that they may have gone through. I would like to thank my instructor, Dr. Jennifer Dyer Seymour, for helping me this whole process, whole semester. My teacher, Catherine England H., and my advisor, Christy Lochner, just for continual support. UROC, as well as Misa James, for helping me get off my feet with the internship last summer. The AS Capstone Grant Committee, my family, my aunt, uncles, and cousin, my friends, Brock, Brian, Katie, Liz, Anna, and just CSUMB in general. It's like really treating me well, and I'm really gonna miss it. So. Does anyone have any questions?
How do these children know those facial expressions mean awesome or terrible?
How do the children know?
Yeah, like how do they learn that?
Just through by just learning like lexical signs. Like it's just shown if you look it up in the actual ASL dictionary, terrible, it'll say also see awesome or see also awesome, and then it'll show like just the difference in facial expressions. There's actually a lot of signs that are like considered homonyms, but because of the facial expression or mouth air emissions and stuff like that, you can differentiate them and make them less ambiguous. Anyone else? Yes.
Are there areas of cognitive development where children who are hard of hearing may achieve the skills earlier than children who are not, because somehow the gesture is improving their understanding?
I would say yes, because I didn't work on the hearing participant section. I only worked on the deaf and hard of hearing kids section, and I left before they got to get to finish coding and got to the results. But from what I saw, their gestures were a lot more in depth and just a lot more descriptive. Because with speech, you just kind of you can easily just be like, well, that one has more because that's taller, and they're less likely to show.
Yeah.
That's what I found.